Hello. Today we're going to be going over why you are overthinking pilgrimages. This is a topic that I don't think is talked about enough. I think this is something that we kind of push to the side and romanticize in a variety of ways. And that's why I want to talk about it, because we are going to be coming to, let's see, in 2 days, the year of Jubilee will, I think, start with a Mass. I don't exactly know when it technically started. Um, just because I thought Advent was the beginning of the the liturgical year. And so but the Jubilee year of 2025 is happening, and in the Archdiocese of Detroit, we are going to be having a Mass uh kicking it off. So in the middle of the Christmas season. So today is the third day of Christmas. Merry Christmas. Um Remember, we're not like the Protestants. It's not just one day. But I always got to get that in, because Christmas, it's not a fourth quarter thing, right? Like it's not a business transaction of celebrating and everybody exchanges gifts of equal value. But that's how it. I don't know. I don't like a Christmas story, but I digress. So all right. So if you've read the description, I kind of go into it a little bit loosely about how people view pilgrimages, and they seem to cover a large group a large group of understandings. Like it's a stress reliever. You're moving away from work, your life, and you're focusing on God in some sort of really super focused faraway place, like the Camino that's shown in the bad movie, or I say the movie that is very distracting, The Way. I have a whole video devoted to that. But the Camino is a good thing, right? It's a good pilgrimage. There are other pilgrimages that are popular and have been popularized in America, South America, all around the world. And so yes, I agree. But all around the world. All right. And so I know in the 80s and 90s, Medjugorje was an issue. And although, I'm very, I agree with the bishop's pronouncements about Medjugorje. That being said, there's a pilgrimage and it seems to be targeted towards, I'm going to be very frank about this because of the advertisement, an older generation that got advertised to about 30 years ago. And it's weird, but because when I think of pilgrimages, I don't think going to that specific one outside of people literally word of mouthing it. And but yeah, I agree with the bishop on that one. I don't think the apparition happens. So I again agree with both bishops that have pronounced it. But when it comes to pilgrimages for me and you, all right, so there's a lot of pilgrimages that, even though you don't have $4,000, $5,000 to travel overseas into Europe to do, you don't need, pilgrimages have completely undermined, how we view pilgrimages have completely undermined the point of them. You have to have a lot of money to go somewhere far, and then what happens? You may or may not have a focus on God that actually hits on what you're trying to look for, if you're looking for the good thing. You don't need to be wealthy to go on a pilgrimage. It's really weird that I have to say that, but that is something that really it doesn't make sense to me. A pilgrimage should be something that does take resources. Obviously you have to travel, but something where you have to spend 3 paychecks to do doesn't make sense to me. I have no idea if the cruise that's advertised, at least locally, I'm not gonna. I mean, you say the name, but it's definitely I don't know if that's a pilgrimage or not. I mean, it might be in a loose sense, because they typically have priests there, but because a pilgrimage is your focus on it, your focus is on veneration, right? Like veneration at the end point. So you make a pilgrimage to the on the Camino, right? Like St. John's is the target, right? Like that's why they call it St. John's. Like that's part of the thumbnail, right? And so that is the destination is getting to St. John's. And so the tomb, I believe it's the tomb of St. John's at the Camino, but it's something where um, I'm not super familiar with the Camino in terms of like the finer details. I'm talking generally speaking as pilgrimages, like or a pilgrimage that we like go on them to go and venerate or to go and worship God. Um, and so like for example, the Archdiocese of Detroit, so I'll bring this up right now. The Archdiocese of Detroit has designated 12 spots as pilgrimage spots that will be, that are designated for the year of Jubilee. And it's this came out in late November 30th. I mean, the latest part of November, but like, this is to get us prepped for the year of Jubilee. And it's a really good thing that this happened. Our pastor pointed this out a few weeks ago in a homily because there are indulgences applied to these, right? Like there are things that you can get that will personally affect your piety, right? Like this is a very good devotional practice to follow through with. And so Mandy and I have talked about whether or not we're going to go a little bit to 12. We're definitely going to go to a few of them. We don't know if we're going to go to all 12. But let's just see. Yep. So Jubilee years in the church are characterized by their extraordinary focus on God's mercy, especially through the expanded availability of the sacrament of confession, the offering of indulgences, Archbishop Vigneron said. And then these are the 12 pilgrim sites. The Basilica of St. Anne, Detroit. St. Anne is our patron saint in the Archdiocese. The Blessed Solanus Casey Center in Detroit. Blessed Solanus Casey is a very recently beatified saint. I believe he is also going to be canonized to have the designation of Saint Solanus Casey. Cathedral of the Most Blessed Sacrament, that is obviously the cathedral where the bishop is. The Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Southfield. So these are not all parishes. Some of these are cemeteries and other places of interest. National Shrine of the Little Flower, Basilica, Royal Oak. Our Lady of Fatima Shrine, Riverview. Our Lady of Hope Cemetery, Brownstown Township. Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary Chapel, Madonna University, Livonia. Shrine of Jesus, the Divine Mercy, Clinton Township. Shrine of St. John Paul II, Orchard Lake. St. Joseph Shrine, Detroit. So that is the TLM shrine that we have in the Archdiocese. And then Shrine of the Immaculate Heart of Mary in Pontiac. So I've only been to like 2 and not gotten a good look at one of them. Drive by another one fairly often though. So yeah, like we have several of these like that are close by. We live in a part of the Archdiocese where there's a few of these that are fairly close. There's others that we'll have to drive a ways. Like we're not very close to Pontiac, but we live in a metropolitan, right? Like we live in Archdiocese of Detroit. Your diocese or archdiocese, your travel may not be that far, right? Depending on how big your diocese is in terms of square miles. This may be something that's really good for you to do. Well, I mean, it will be good for you to do. Like I don't have any doubt of that. It's just a matter of each diocese is going to have a different list if they have a list. I don't know if every diocese has a list. That's not something I know for sure. But I do know that the Archdiocese of Detroit does, and we have indulgences attached to them. So speaking of indulgence, since I read through the handbook of them, I remembered very vividly that the feast day of a parish is a time in which you can be granted an indulgence. And so that is another pilgrimage that you can do, right? Like if you are concerned about say someone that you're praying for, that's your family, and you want to get an indulgence for them, they're dead, and you want to get an indulgence for them. Look at the feast days of local parishes. Look at the feast days, and then make a pilgrimage to those parishes. Like that's a very real thing. Like in the fact that we don't look at it that way. Like I have I've gone to several parishes around, right? Like my kids go to a school that is a parish. We go to another parish, so we're not part of that parish for the school. And I know some people like think that's, oh no, you're doing a bad thing. It's like, not really. I'd go into more detail, but I'm not going to do that right now. That's not the point of this video. And it is a lengthy conversation. But the but going to St. Basil's, for example, like we have the feast day of St. Basil on the 2nd of January coming up. St. Basil is my parish. He is the patron saint of my parish. And so we plan on going there to our own parish to do an indulgence, to get granted an indulgence. But we are also going to be looking into the practice of, generally speaking, of going to particular parishes around the diocese that have their feast days celebrated, so that we can be granted an indulgence and increase our devotions, right? Like, because that's part of the thing with indulgences, is that it kind of comes in two forms. Um, it comes in the form of you're being granted the indulgence, but you're also bettering the practice, the virtue of your religion, right? Or I'm sorry, the virtue of religion. So you're getting better at working on your virtue of religion, your devotional life. And we talk about the virtue of justice a lot in society and of patience, but the virtue of religion is very important, obviously. Like, we live it. So um um so that's the other part of indulgences that's great, is you get you get granted an indulgence, partial or plenary, and you work on your habit, your virtue, your um consistent practice of what you want to do. Um, so Assumption Grotto gets very festively with their feast day, and it's both fun and fulfilling. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's we kind of missed that one too. We tried to get there, but yeah, it is great. I know St. Joseph's, like, here's the crazy thing. So like James, like, you can only get one plenary indulgence a day, but St. Joseph's Shrine is very interesting because you have, this is a pilgrimage site, but then you also have the 2 days for St. Joseph in the feasts, in the calendar. So like like there's like a triple, oh, not a triple effect, but there's a triple, for this year. There's 3 ways you can get an indulgence. So did we? I thought I forgot it. Okay, whatever. All right. Oh yeah, because there's like a plus or minus of 20 days. I forgot about that. There's like a plus or minus of 20 days. Like, it's a very generous window for when you go to a parish. Um, so yeah, that's crazy. But the obviously, getting back to the video topic, in more detail, or at least more pointed, I think we do have to start looking at going to parishes as a form of pilgrimage and not as a form of practicality, right? Like, I go to our kids' parish, um, our kids' school's parish, and in a lot of cases, I just look at it as a school, and that's my bad, right? Like, that's not something I really should do. Like, that is a place in which, where God resides, and I shouldn't treat it so profanely, even though it is just the school, right? But so that's something I'm pointing out myself that I have to work on, but like it's something that I think just as something to, talk about, to think about and reflect on, that when we go to parishes, when we visit family, when we go to baptisms, when we go to sacraments of family members or friends, that we should, instead of saying, well, we're going to this parish, it's like change the word going to we're taking a pilgrimage to this parish. And I think for a lot of people, including myself, it'll change how you view it. And I think you'll because like words have meanings. And instead of thinking that pilgrimages are these like grandiose, like they're almost like an intervention in your own life, like moving away, which they can be, right? Like you can take the time to do that. I'm not saying it's bad to go on the Camino. It's just not everybody can do it. Not everybody has the means to do it, or to go on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Not everybody has the means to do it. So um, uh, it's just a matter of trying to see like where the sacred is in your life that you actively move to, right? Because any parish you go to has God in it. Like any parish has the Eucharist. That has the Eucharist has God in it. And in I guess like just kind of off the hip, how we treat that is almost too casual. In fact, I would probably say it is too casual, and we don't appreciate the reverence that is due to those areas. So that's just my 2 cents. That being said, though, I'm in the process of trying to schedule a pilgrimage to Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin. And Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin is the only apparition in America that Our Lady has been to that's been approved by the bishop. Now, obviously, when I say America, I mean the United States. Obviously, Our Lady of Guadalupe. I mean, that's the day I was born, so like that has significance to me. But like, in terms of the sorry, in terms of the pilgrimage to a site that's in America and not in Medjugorje, not don't for the sake of the apparition, I would not say to go there. Again, citing the 2 bishops that have already commented on it and the lack of clarification from anybody higher. And that, we don't need to go to Mexico. It's not exactly safe. We don't need to go to Lourdes. We don't need to go across the sea, right? We can go to Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, I mean, depending on where you live, like I live in Michigan, so there's kind of a like very casual aspect to it because it's another Midwestern state. But at the same time, I've actually never been to Wisconsin. So and the feast day is, I believe, October either 9th or 11th. I forget which one. But it's 10 months away. And so I'm trying to set it up where this happens, and I'm trying to see if Father Eric wants to go. And basically, I'm just kind of doing our call now. It's not, I don't know how far, like for most of you, like Wisconsin is. For us, it's, I think, like a 5 or 6 hour drive. We'll probably stay the night if we do. But in terms of going to a place in which Our Lady has appeared, and if that's what you're looking for in terms of a devotion, um, I'm trying to like basically set up a group meeting, like all of us meeting there, is kind of what I'm getting at, because it's, I do think that for the like like when something gets approved like that, like an apparition, I do think that it's played down way too much, right? Like there's a reason why an apparition shows, like why an apparition of Our Lady comes, um, and the timing in which the bishop approves also matters. So this is a fairly recent approval, even though it happened in the 1800s. Um, and there's reasons for that. And I think part of the reason why, in terms of how I'm understanding it, is in the providence of God. This is happening because we should have more of a focus on Our Lady. And in America, we should focus on ourselves, right? Like we should stop looking elsewhere for gratification of grace. We should stop thinking that we need to go to some far off, like I said, pilgrimage when we can do it in our backyard. Like Wisconsin is pretty close to the heart of the country itself, right? Like it's about like the most middle of the ground area you can possibly get in terms of like where it could possibly be. And I think that given our current dynamic, especially with what happened politically and what is happening politically, the good and the bad, because there's certainly not all good that's happening, um, and that this is a time for us to really focus in on, um, basically, you know, like taking care of ourselves and following mom, you know, Mother Mary. So, um, in our own house, basically in our own house, right? Like in America, in the United States. So, you didn't change the flag. Yes, correct. And the flag is a bit longer than I thought it was because I was going to change it just before this, but then I actually have to change the posts. So I have a Sacred Heart flag right now, but I'm going to be changing it to um, a nativity one and keep it up until Candlemas. And I can't do that right now because of how the hangers are, and I have to adjust those hangers because of how long it is. So it's going to be taking up more of a space, and I am a bit off center, which I know bothers some people, but it's more for like the image to come in, just given my layout and where I am. So, but yeah. So when it comes to pilgrimages, there's the big ones and the small ones, and I think uh, a lot of us would do a lot of good, or it would do a lot of us a lot of good. Sorry, it's really late I don't typically do it start at 10. I typically start at 9, and it's kind of been a pretty big day here. Um, but there's big pilgrimages, small pilgrimages, and I think it would do a lot of people a lot of good to do the smaller pilgrimages and to really practice that perspective and moving to parishes, or going to parishes on pilgrimage during their feast days or other days of importance to really focus in on practicing the virtue of religion that we are called to do. And I'm saying it that way because like natural law, like kind of thing. But anyways, but like the year of Jubilee, like if you're in the Archdiocese of Detroit, you have 12 spots that you can go to. You don't need a feast day. You can just go to the year of Jubilee, and that will grant you an indulgence given the proper, you're doing confession, having mass, and you're praying for the Pope's intentions. So that's really important. That's really good. And take advantage of it and look at your diocese. So obviously if you're outside of the Archdiocese of Detroit, look at your diocese, see what you can do. Because I would be very shocked if your bishop wasn't on top of this. This seems to be a really big thing, like more so than other years that we've had. So, yeah, I don't know. They just seem like they're on top of it. And that's good to see. Uh, yeah. So that's all I'm going to say that because I've got a lot more to say about it and I'm not going to say it. But so it's late. I think that's it. Most of the people that are usually here are probably celebrating Christmas with their family. And so I obviously blame them for doing that. That's wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Like that's fine. But yeah, so I guess that's it. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop early. So 25 minutes. I think that's a good time. And then sleeping off the cookies. Yep, gonna sleep off the cookies. So I hope you are enjoying your Christmas, and I'll see you probably Monday. All right.